Hurricane warnings are in effect for the Cayman Islands, hurricane watches for Cuba, and tropical storm watches for the Florida Keys as a system brews in the Caribbean. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on the tropics. On this Monday afternoon, we have a brand new tropical storm sitting right there in the Caribbean Sea. It is Tropical Storm Rafael, and we will see Rafael become a hurricane as it heads towards the northwest Caribbean. Here's the latest as of 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. Rafael was at 15.5 north, 76.7 west, winds of 45 miles per hour, but that pressure's dropping down to 997 millibars, continuing to fall. It's moving north at 9, and again, that motion should become more northwesterly, becoming a hurricane by Tuesday afternoon, and then a Category 2 hurricane by Wednesday afternoon, making landfall in western Cuba, and then weakening as it heads into the Gulf of Mexico in more unfavorable conditions. But anything after Wednesday is very, very highly uncertain at this time. We do have a lot of watches and warnings to go over. We have a hurricane warning in effect for the Cayman Islands, a hurricane watch for western Cuba. We also have a tropical storm warning for Jamaica, and a tropical storm watch for areas there of central Cuba, and now for the lower and middle Florida Keys from Key West all the way to west of the Channel 5 bridge. That includes the Dry Tortuga. So again, a large area here under tropical storm watches and warnings and hurricane watches and warnings, because Rafael should become a potent hurricane, a late season hurricane, a strong November Caribbean hurricane as it heads up towards western Cuba. Here's the latest visible satellite imagery, and again, the center is right in this general location here, so it is bubbling enough that the National Hurricane Center christened it a tropical storm. Again, it's a tight system. It's not too large, but tropical storm force winds do extend out 100 miles. So again, if you're in that area, very rough conditions, but the tightness of it should allow it to consolidate into a hurricane as it moves towards the northwest over the next couple of days. The upper level winds are actually quite favorable. Look at this wind shear map. Very low shear tendencies here in the western Caribbean Sea. Anytime you see greens and dark blues and blacks, that is very favorable here for intensification for the upper level winds. Waters are very warm. And look at this map. It has an anticyclone, high pressure aloft right near the center of the storm. Not quite over the top of it, but close enough to where this thing could really get cranking prior to Cuba. So right now the forecast has it 100 miles per hour. That's a Category 2. It could be a category stronger. It could be a Category 3, which would be another major hurricane. Oh, how many major hurricanes have we had this season? We had Beryl. We had Helene. We had Kirk. Then we had Hurricane Milton. And then after Milton, we had Nadine, Oscar. Oscar was not a major hurricane. This would be, what, the 5th major hurricane? It's crazy. I used to be better at that, by the way, keeping track of numbers, but there's been a lot of numbers lately, and it's hard to keep track of stuff. Now, the pattern does have this pressure to the north of it, the high pressure, steering it, kind of spitting it northwest, and that's why it should come out here into the Gulf of Mexico. But after that, there are questions. We don't really have any idea what the steering flow is going to be, and we don't know how strong the system's going to be in the Gulf. Is it going to be a hurricane or a strong hurricane? That will affect the track. Is it going to be weaker? That will affect the track. So the models are really unknown. Now, there is precedent for this. Back in 1980, we had Hurricane Gene. Now, we reuse the name every 6 years, and in 2004, Hurricane Gene was a devastating major hurricane for Florida. But when we first used the name in 1980, it was a Category 2 hurricane in November 1980, reached 100 miles per hour, but it was one of only 4 occurrences in the 20th century of a hurricane that formed and dissipated in the Gulf of Mexico without making landfall. Look at the track of Hurricane Gene 1980. It moved west and then it kind of died on its own. It was landlocked, but it never got to land. Now, that is very rare, but it does happen, especially when conditions are unfavorable. Look at these European models. Look at the consensus. Same thing as Gene 1980. Looping around and dying all alone in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, there are some that have it striking Texas, Louisiana, the Gulf Coast, even as a hurricane or a strong hurricane, and that's why we have to watch it so closely. The GFS models they're weaker and they take it more towards the northeast Gulf. So again, we don't have any confidence of where this thing is going to go after Cuba, but we do have an idea that it should be a hurricane and a potent one by Cuba. That much we know. So the key messages for Tropical Storm Rafael. Number one, Rafael is expected to become a hurricane when it passes near or over the Cayman Islands Tuesday evening. Damaging hurricane force winds, a dangerous storm surge, and destructive waves are expected. Tropical storm conditions expected in Jamaica tonight and Tuesday. Obviously, Jamaica, you're under a tropical storm warning. Number two, additional strengthening is forecast before Rafael reaches western Cuba and the Isle of Youth on Wednesday. There is an increasing risk of a dangerous storm surge and damaging hurricane force winds. Category 2 hurricanes, nothing to scoff at. Number three, tropical storm conditions are possible in the lower and middle Florida Keys late Wednesday or Wednesday night. As this wind field possibly expands, you could get clipped there. That's why we have those tropical storm watches. Number four, it is too soon to determine what, if any, impacts Rafael could bring to the North Gulf Coast. Residents in that area should monitor regular updates to the forecast. And finally, Rafael will bring areas of heavy rain to the Western Caribbean. That's Jamaica, Cuba, all the way through midweek. Flooding and landslides possible. Heavy rain will spread into Florida and areas of the southeastern United States by mid to late week. Again, Rafael will move northwest around that ridge, but after it gets in the Gulf, we have no real idea, with some taking it towards Texas, others taking it towards the Panhandle, some having it hit America as a hurricane, others having it die in the Gulf. So that's pretty much a forecast of no idea. Patty. We had Patty way out there. It was a subtropical storm. It strengthened a little bit. It's now gone. The remnants of Patty way up there at 38.5 north, 16.2 west, 585 miles east of the Azores. Whatever's left of Patty ain't much. It is naked. It is a naked swirl. Naked Patty there, headed towards the coastline of Portugal and Spain. Way the heck out there, a far cry from western Cuba. So again, we'll continue to watch this system. All eyes will be on Rafael over the next couple of days as Rafael becomes a hurricane and then a stronger hurricane and heads towards western Cuba. Be on alert in the Florida Keys, the Cayman Islands, and of course the Gulf Coast of the United States. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest on Rafael, and I'll talk to you next time.